Welcome to my little space where heart and hook stitch up a place where we can together make a refuge safe for all our sake. Ooh, hello, I'm working on another Nana. This is extra getting ahead of myself because this isn't for this released for 2 more Wednesdays from now, but this is going to be named after Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's beside the point. I just wanted to hop in here and show you this cool example I just came across. And as I'm making this, I'm snipping off, yarn tails and putting them in my scraps bag as I go. And I noticed this is a perfect example for showing you the difference between Z twist and S twist. See how they are angled opposite each other. What I noticed is that this one is twisted the opposite direction of all of my other yarns, basically. It seems like at least the yarns that I have that are store-bought generally twist this direction. So the way you can tell is if it makes the diagonal line of what you would see in a Z, that would be Z twist. So this one, if you imagine drawing a Z, that's the angle. That's the angle. And for this one, this is an S twist because this is the line, the diagonal you would see in an S. There. I thought that was just a good visual because they have that contrasting stripe through them. But now that I've said that, it looks like one other of these yarns that I have is also the Z twist. This one on your right. Yeah, it's sort of a lazy Z twist. It's kind of not as tight as this one, but it's still the same direction as this one. And it's a similar kind of yarn, actually. They're just kind of slightly bulkier than a 4-weight. They may be 5. I'm not sure. Parts of the yarn seem more like 4. Parts of them seem like 5. But like all my other sort of regular cheap acrylic yarn scraps, they all seem to be the S twist. It's just harder to see. But I thought that was a really good example. Z twist and S twist. Something I never, ever thought about before starting to do spinning. I have to say it. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. I also have a Patreon where you could be the very first paid member if you'd like to be. Right, what I'm doing for now is I'm posting all the video clips that I take for my upcoming YouTube videos, and as soon as I take them, I'm posting them there for my patrons to be. And I look forward to maybe doing some live chats and stuff in the future if I ever get some patrons. And then I also wanted to plug my friend's book. My friend, Roger Matthey, just recently released his book, The Transporter, Tales from a Rideshare Driver. So he's a good writer. He's written plays and stories from his time as a rideshare driver, and he had them on a blog for a while, and I think several friends, including me, pressured him to put it into a book. So here it is, and I'm looking forward to reading them. I've read the first several, so I'll give you a teaser with the first story. Okay, so while I'm reading a little bit of this to you, you'll be seeing me working on crocheting the neck and head of my Nana Ketanji, named after Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. So this is The Transporter, Tales from a Rideshare Driver by my friend Roger Matthey. I'm so proud of him. On the back, he says, I started driving rideshare in 2016 to make extra money and took a hiatus in 2018 and picked it up again in 2023. I didn't start writing about my riders until 2023, and originally they were posts on Facebook. After a few posts, I was encouraged to create a blog based on my stories, and so I converted them into a blog format and started posting them there. These are the first 100 stories I took from the adventures of the people I drove. Day 1. Traffic stop. Tonight, I picked up a ride that was listed under the name Claire, but when I picked up the young woman, she didn't look like a Claire. When I asked if she was Claire, she just nodded at me and smiled. She didn't seem to be able to speak English and was very quiet. She looked to be an immigrant wearing a hijab. She had a cell phone on her, and so I thought maybe someone ordered the ride for her. I took her to the address that was input into the app, but when we got there, she indicated that it was the wrong address. She showed me the address it was supposed to be on her phone, and it was 20 miles away from where we were. I couldn't explain that to her, though. I did not want to leave her at the wrong location, and since I figured it wasn't her account, I decided to drive her to the other address with no charge. When we got there, it was an apartment complex, and there was a dark SUV parked in the shadows. There were a couple of large men standing next to the vehicle, obviously waiting for her. She went over to them, and one of them opened the back door, motioning for her to get in. There seemed to already be a few other people in the vehicle. Earlier during the drive to the first location, I had heard someone talking to her on the phone. I guess they had called her wondering where she was, and an angry voice barked, "Halfway around the world and you don't speak a word of fucking English!" That alone had made me suspicious, and when I saw the SUV, my suspicions grew. I got out of my car so I could try to talk to them and explain what happened. They seemed to get nervous when I shined my flashlight at them. Then they told me to get the fuck out. As they came toward me, I rushed to get back in my car. I pulled out of the parking lot, driving down the block before I stopped to call 911. I saw the SUV drive past me and I decided to follow. Before I drove off, I quickly wrote down the license plate as I waited for the call to connect. When I got someone to talk on the phone, I tried to explain what was going on. I'm guessing the SUV realized someone was following them because they started to speed up. I lost them on a side street while still on the phone with the police. They told me that I should just leave it alone, as the license plate was enough to give them a lead. But they asked if I could meet with an officer to talk about what had happened. So I went to the police station and I gave them my story. They also got information from my app on who called the ride. They said there had been an issue with East African refugees in the state, especially from places like Somalia and the Congo, being used as slave labor. After we finished talking, I told them to call me if I could help anymore. I informed the rideshare company of the incident and gave them the police report and told them who I talked to. They told me I acted accordingly, except for the part of getting out of my car. Instead, I should have just called the police if I saw any suspicious activity and let them handle it. I felt like I didn't do enough. I should have been more proactive. They got away, and I constantly think of that young girl and whoever else was in that Suburban and every other victim of human trafficking, and how I was pretty f***ing useless tonight. It made me think that I should share these rides with people. Maybe they could be informative about the ride-sharing experience, let people know how to act when they are getting rides, or maybe they can simply entertain. Note, a few days later, an item appeared on my app instructing drivers how to deal with instances of suspected human trafficking. It must have been a coincidence. All right, so that story really struck me. But continuing to read, you'll find that a lot of these are pretty darn funny. Roger has a way of really showcasing the comedy in everyday situations, and doing this rideshare, it really, he runs into a lot of characters, and I think this isn't unusual to run into so many characters and funny scenarios, but it takes a keen observer of humanity and people, and then also a really good communicator to catch the comedy and the drama in everyday interactions and be able to convey that in words. So I'll just read one more. It's super short, but it's a very different feel than the first. Day 2, Strip Club Basics. Tonight's story involves picking up a gentleman at a strip club and him explaining the best hours to go to a strip club. He said that you should go between noon and 4 p.m. because that's when all the housewives go while their kids are at school. According to him, the housewives don't try and rip you off. They just do the job so they can earn some money to pay the bills, or escape their boring lives and have a little excitement. They seem to enjoy being there and are very nice to customers. He went on to explain that when you go at night, all the ladies are there to hustle you out of your money. Hustlers be hustling. He told me he was hustled out of all of his money, and now he knows he should have gone at noon. He wanted to pass this wisdom on to me, in case I ever went to a strip club. And now I have passed this wisdom on to you. So I'll leave it there. I totally recommend this book for gift giving. If you have anybody that has to have a book in their bathroom all the time, because it's perfect for a bathroom book. There's just, individual vignettes, little snippets, and you can find it on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description box below. So just a little bit about how I know Roger. Back right when I was fresh out of college with my singing vocal performance degree, I was trying to do some local community theater, and he was one of the prominent theater guys in Bakersfield at the time where I was living. And he cast me in my very first ever non-musical stage role. So he was doing he directed his own one-act play called Like Morphine, and it was part of a collection of one acts, and I think the whole thing was called Project Murder. So it was me and one other person who played my father, aging father, sick, kind of on his deathbed, I guess. And from what I recall, it was so long ago now. I was a gay woman, and my father was horrible to me because of it. He kind of berated me and belittled me and talked down to me, and I ended up dosing him up by the end of the play. It was very moving to be in, and I was very honored that Roger saw something in me, that even though I didn't have the non-singing acting training, he gave me a chance, and I really enjoyed that, and I kind of took off from there. I did a bunch of other community theater at the time, and that never really went super far, the acting thing, but it was certainly fun and wonderful life experience. Also, just last summer, he produced and directed his own play that he wrote called The Night Auditor, which was fantastic. My partner and I drove down to LA to see it. Oh yeah, I even had an ad in the program for my crochet business, and we were so impressed and entertained, and he acted in it as well. So as much as I can, whenever I see friends of mine showcasing their talents and their creativity, I want to showcase that here on my channel as well. So I'll be on the lookout. I have a lot of talented friends. Now that I've said that, I can start thinking about who I want to showcase next. I already have somebody in mind. All right. Okay. I'm excited. And now would be a great time to tell you that I also do have a design for Ketanji Brown Jackson dolls in my little mini size available in my shop for order. I don't have any already made, but I will make them to order. And this is what they look like. All right, join me for some brushing out of my scraps. This is still that same initial scraps pile that I've been making yarn from the initial pile from my first video. I've learned that if I'm a little more careful setting the strips of yarn lengthwise this in the same direction, hanging off my board like this, it just starts shredding it much faster, and it's a little more what's the word? Efficient. So it's still time-staking. Obviously, laying them on the board like this is a little more of a time-staking process here. But you'll see. I'll speed up the video a bit so that we don't sit here forever and watch it. But it is a little bit fun to watch the pieces pull apart. And I was determined this time to get through the rest of this scraps bag. And I did. I went through all the rest of the scraps bag, brushing it out, turning it into some big rollags. I'll show you in a second. And then spinning that onto my spindle. So while you're watching me brush out my fluff, I thought I'd give you a little bit of story time. This is basically the coolest thing that's ever happened to me that I've ever been able to do as a crochet artist. Back for the 2018 congressional election in where I used to live in Santa Clarita, we had a very red district, and we were trying to flip our district blue. There was a chance that we could flip it blue under the Trump administration, and I have a good friend who, she's quite liberal-minded like I am, progressive, and she invited me to a meet and greet for a candidate who was going to be running for Congress in our district. And I went and I met her. Her name's Jess Phoenix. She's a volcanologist. This is a picture I got with her during that first meet and greet. So she's an actual geologist who studies volcanoes, and she's a beautiful young woman, and she's very intelligent. Obviously, she's a scientist. She's very personable. She's really, really well spoken, and she made for a really compelling candidate. I got excited. I started making dolls of her, much like I had the first time around with Bernie's campaign, where I was making dolls of him, selling them, and donating the money to his campaign. I started doing the same for her campaign, because she, just same as Bernie, was not taking large corporate, PAC money. She had a lot of fans in Hollywood. In Santa Clarita, we're kind of close to Hollywood and big movie stars and stuff. And so when the time came that they were doing some fundraising parties for Hollywood elite type people. I was invited to go by Jess and her campaign. So I did go. It was pretty cool. I got to meet some big names in the industry. Joss Whedon was there. He gave a talk about how excited he was for Jess Phoenix to potentially win a congressional seat. And at one point in the party, Jess came over to me with this guy who is a cartoonist, Tim Elred, and he does a lot of political cartoons. And they came over to me with an idea. They knew that I was doing the dolls, of course. Jess knew, and they explained to me that Jess had been challenging Ryan Zinke, who was Secretary of the Interior at the time, on Twitter to a battle of geologic knowledge, because he had been claiming to be a geologist even though he's not, and using that to push legislation that was terrible for our national parks. So in her tweet here, she's referencing an article that has a tagline of Ryan Zinke refers to himself as a geologist. It goes on, that's a job he's, presumably it says he's never had. So Jess says, "Hey, Secretary Zinke, I am a real geologist. I challenge you to a battle of geologic knowledge. Anytime, any place. Winner gets the DOI job. Loser never claims to be a geologist again." FYI, not one of his quotes in the article was correct or made sense. He never responded to her on Twitter. Tim explained that he had drawn a caricature of Zinke and asked me if I could use that as inspiration to make a jointed and weighted doll that could be strung up as a marionette, so that they could film a debate, air quotes, debate, as a campaign ad. I agreed and got to work. I definitely did more embroidery than I normally do and more detailing on the face to try to get the caricature right from his drawing, as well as I went and bought some fishing weights to put in his hands and feet, and maybe his butt, I can't remember. My puppet ended up being puppeted by professional puppeteer Alyssa Honeycutt. Jess had written the whole script full of geology puns and included real quotes from Zinke. The moderator was Will Wheaton, who I got to meet, and Patton Oswalt provided a voice recording for my puppet. It was real Hollywood film people who donated their time to do it too. Honestly, it was the best moment of my crochet career, even more than finding blips of my dolls in a couple movies. And at least I have this bit of magic to look back on fondly, even though she didn't win. I hope that stays up on the internet forever. I'll put a link in the description. Please go watch it. That would make my heart happy, and let me know in the comments what you think. I got to watch them film it as well, and so I got to meet Will Wheaton. I didn't get to meet Patton Oswalt because he pre-recorded the voice part for Ryan Zinke, and Alyssa did a fantastic job puppeting along with the recording, which isn't normally how you do it, I don't think. So that was special. And since we're on the topic of Jess Phoenix's run for Congress, I'm going to interrupt this rolling up of this rolag and show you this little clip from an interview she gave during that time, where she mentions somebody you may be aware of.
How would you support the business community?
It's been pretty good. A lot of folks who are local business owners, local artists, craftspeople, people who are in the maker economy are very, very supportive. In fact, one of them is she's crocheting little Jess Phoenix dolls and selling them. Yeah, there's a science version and there's me in a suit. So, I mean, that has to be the most innovative like campaign swag I've ever even heard of. And so, you know, she's a local business person. She sells these dolls and all of her crocheting work, and one of them was used in the movie Wrinkle in Time. So, yeah, I mean, people.
So, apologies for basically just bragging this whole time, but this was like the coolest chapter in my crochet history. I'm looking to outdo that at some point. I think that there are more cool things on the horizon for me yet. Well, I worked all the rest of that pile of yarn into 3 really large roll ags, and I spun it all onto my spindle as a single initially. So this is all of that as a single. That was a lot on my spindle. And then later off camera, I plied it with thread. I took my kids roller skating. We went to the local roller rink. These are the skates that I've worn ever since I was, I think, 13 years old, and they are too tight on my feet. But here's a picture of me on stage in my roller skates. Hello, friends. I just got back from roller skating, so my legs feel a little jello-y, which means that's what I needed. I needed some exercise. Here I've got my yarn scraps bag. I don't always use this bag, but currently this is what's holding my random balls that I've designated as my yarn scraps bag, and I'm going to dump them out. So I will angle the camera down. You won't be able to see my face, but I'll talk about what I'm doing here. Okay, this is an empty bag. Let's see. I'm going to be making the Mary Jane Faye vest as a pattern test for Star Lily Creations. So, you know, this could be used as a regular yarn. Usually I use these fancy yarns in particular ways, but I could use these as regular yarns in the vest too. The only thing is that I'd like to have enough of each scrap ball to do a full round in the pattern. So depending on where I am in the pattern, I'll need more or less. Like closer towards the centerpiece of the back, I won't need as much yarn to go a full round. But then as the vest expands larger, I'll need more of each color. So what I want is I want a green for the centerpiece leaf. So I'm just going to choose a green. It could be this. I actually used this in combination with another skinnier green like acrylic yarn for the centerpiece of my Mary Jane wrap top that I did for Astronauty, but I think I'll just use this basic green, which actually I talked a little bit about this green in a previous previous chapter. So I'll use this for the start, and then I want to just expand from here and make a lineup of colors, and I think I'm going to do rainbow order. So I will start with green here as the first color, and then I will continue with Roy G. Biv. So next I need a blue, so I will choose a blue, and I'm going to go ahead and choose one of the smaller, I have multiple blue options here. I'll choose one of the smaller balls because this will probably be enough to do a round around the centerpiece. And if it turns out to not be, I can make adjustments as I go. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. We're not going to say indigo and violet. We're just going to say purple for the purposes of yarns. Do I have a purple? Well, I have this one, which is a fancy fuzzy yarn. I'd love to include that, so I'll put that there. And if I need to go grab yarns from my yarn cabinets, I'll take you with me. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, red. But we're going to include pink, because pink isn't included in Roy G. Biv. We're going to include a pink. So let's see. This is the smaller ball of pink here. I don't think I have any other pinks. This could count as a pink. Whichever was the smallest. I'll use that one. That'll be my pink. Now I don't have a red. So this could also kind of count as a red, but I will get some reds from my cabinet. Now I know I need some reds. So we'll leave a space there for the red. Orange. This might be my only orange. Let's see. This one could count as an orange, but you know, I think I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm just going to cluster all of the pinks together. I'm going to just put these in order. I know I'm going to start with this one for the centerpiece leaf, but I'm going to do greens, put all the blues together. Oops. And I've got black here too. Black and gray. And those would be fun to incorporate as well. The scrappy sweater that I made recently, the bell sleeve sweater that I did in rainbow colors, I did the same kind of thing, and I also included the blacks and the grays and the neutrals, and I liked that look. So it's not a blatantly obvious rainbow. So this is a blue. This has rainbowy colors in it, but it's got mostly gray, so I'll put it with the grays. I don't know that I want to use these other fancy yarns. Oops. And a lot of these little scrap balls may be too little to use, because very quickly the rounds are going to get larger and larger. So, and then the browns, what I did with my other rainbow scrappy item that I did is I counted browns as orange, which ultimately worked pretty well. So I'm going to include this one too in the greens. And then this one is like all the different colors. So I think I'll include this one with the grays and the blacks, just because it has sort of a lot of gray look to it. And rainbowy stuff, which is included in this gray. So I'm just going to cluster it with those. This one's also very rainbowy. I don't know. Or maybe I'll make a separate pile of rainbowy stuff. I think I like that. Okay, I'll do that. This is a little bit haphazard of a journey, and that's okay. Kind of talking through my process. And then white. White could be a neutral that I include with maybe not at all, or maybe in with the browns. Okay, so we don't have any yellows. I almost feel like I'm going to call this white and this whitish that has sort of this golden, it's golden orange. I could count that as orange, or I could count that as yellow. I might not end up using it at all though, depending, because it's such a small amount. So I'll make that its own pile there. And maybe I'll call those yellows, and I'll put this green over with the greens. So this is what I've got so far. Oh, this green too. This is what I've got so far. I've got blacks and grays. I've got greens, blues, this little purple, my oranges, air quotes oranges, browns and orange, and then pinks, my yellows, air quotes, and some rainbowies. So now what I think I need to do, I need to go to my yarn cabinet and I need to scrounge up definitely some more options of, oh, and then this was my hand spun. I'm not going to include that. That'll stay with some specialty yarns over there. I think I need some more, oops, I'm dropping yarns. I definitely need more yellows, oranges, purples, pinks. Yellow, orange, purple, pink. Maybe green. Yellow, orange, purple, pink, green. All right, let's go see what I find. This is only one of my 2 large yarn cabinets. This one I have organized in terms of rainbow color, starting with reds, oranges, yellows on the left-hand side in the large cabinet doors, and then on the right-hand side, greens, blues, and purples. And then in the top drawers, I've typically been keeping smaller balls of yarn. Once the skein gets down to a smaller ball, I'll stick it in the top drawers. However, lately with keeping my bag full of yarn scraps, those drawers are pretty dwindled down. And I've been, for the most part, using my bag because I've been making so many things with yarn scraps, like the nanas especially, that I just kind of keep my bag stuffed. Here is where I remember that I also need red. So I start going for the reds. For the most part, everything I'm pulling out now, I'll just keep in with my yarn scraps bag. And because most of this is not my usual stock of yarn that I would be repurchasing. I get a lot of yarn secondhand, so a lot of this is secondhand yarn that I won't ever be able to repurchase, and it's perfect for using in scrap projects. And here's the lineup. In my house at any point in the day, you will see me walking back and forth between here and my room with arms full of yarn. All right, so in typical Aileen fashion, I go above and beyond and get way too much yarn out. But you saw me pulling some more yarns out there at my cabinet in the dining room. I love that cabinet, by the way. I've been waiting to show it off a little bit in this series. I forgot to mention I also needed the reds, so I got reds. So I kind of have them separated by color group here. I've got the greens. This time I'm not going to separate out a separate category for blue greens like teals and turquoises. I'm just going to include this sort of teal with the greens and this one that has some turquoise in it with the blues. Oranges, browns count as orange in my mind. Pinks, yellows, this white can count as yellow in my mind. I've got these three that I'm calling rainbow, and I only have these in the grays. I'm not going to pull out more of the rainbows and grays. I'm just going to include what I have here in my current scraps in this rainbow design. So I think what I'll do is I'll alternate. Like I'll do a gray for one row in the sequence of Roy G. Biv. I'll do like Roy G. Biv and then pink and then a gray. And then I'll do Roy G. Biv, pink, and then one of these rainbowy ones that I'm calling rainbow. So I've got reds. I'm calling this one a red. I could just as easily call it orange because it's got like this golden color mixed in, but I'll just call it a red. This is all subjective. I'll call these purples. So my plan is to do Roy G. Biv order, but I'll start with a green for the centerpiece. I'll use this for, I think, for the center pot leaf. And then I'll continue. And then what's after green? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. So then I'll pick a blue, and I think what my plan will be to generally grab the smallest ball that I think will fit all the way around a row. So certainly I won't be using all of these yarns here. And then after blue, I'll grab a purple. If this would be enough to go around the row at that point, the third row, then I'll use that. And then the next cycle through, so I'll go through the whole cycle back to green. And when I come back to green, I'll pick a different green. And I think for now, just to keep it whimsical and sort of random, I'll go for maybe the smallest ball I have available of that particular color section when it's time for that color. And we'll see how this goes. I got to go camping with my partner, and so instead of taking all of that yarn to work on this this vest project, for something like camping, I gotta just bring some noodle yarn or something like that I don't have to bring a whole ton of stuff, and it's very simple. I can have one small bag and just be plugging away at items. So that's what I did. I just plugged away at noodles while camping. The entire 2 days I was just crocheting noodles, and of course eating and sitting around campfires and singing songs with the group. And I took this slow motion video of the fire, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I also brought Easter eggs for all the kids to do an Easter egg hunt, and that was fabulous. And now, because I don't want to stop the fire video because it's so cool, I will show you off to the side the reel that I made showcasing the progress that I had made on the vest once I got back home by the end of Easter Sunday, which was also 4/20. So it's obviously not finished yet. That will come in the next video. I'll have it finished and photographed by the time the next video next week comes out. Crochet hooks and colors bright, crafting wonders day and night. Join the fun, come see it through, subscribe and I'll create for you.